when we have to share a story in Africa, we have to request the audience for permission, and they have to give consent. In my own mother tongue, we say, Nego muganira karugano, and then, meaning, I will share with you a small story, and then the audience will respond, Toganire, meaning, tell us. This is what I need to do here this morning. So, I'll tell you, Nego muganira karugano, and then you will respond, Toganire. So let's go. Nego muganira karugano. Oh, fantastic. Thank you very much. Fortunately for you, these stories are always short. That's the reason we call them small stories as opposed to short stories. Africa means business. This is the unbelievable story that the African people have been weaving thread by thread, one day at a time, for the past 10 years. The story continues even when Africa has to contend with seemingly insurmountable odds. It is the story of $2 trillion economy of 7 countries being forecasted to be among the fastest growing economies in the world in the next 5 years. This is the story of an increasing number of African countries stepping away from aid dependency as their domestic private sectors become the engine of economic growth. This is the story of Africa and African people doing business. Investigating this story, the Harvard Business Review, in its October 2013 issue, highlights 7 reasons why Africa's time is now. Like many other studies before it, it mentions Africa's huge market and increased political stability, among others. I agree with these studies, except for one thing, that they forget the 8th reason, which I also call the 8th wonder of Africa. And to me, that is the most important thing. Why? Because Africa is believing in her people. Africa is believing in the possibility of the African dream. And this is wonderful and so inspiring. The evidence of this, you'll find it in Africa, working on her relationship, investing in her people. For the first time, Africa is believing in her people, in the possibilities of turning around her problems. 3 important relationships are changing. The first one is between men and women. When I was growing up as a young boy, gender-based violence was so rampant. My dad was not educated. He didn't know how to read and write. But there was one thing that made Dad unique and stand out among our neighbors. Dad loved education. While our neighbors were avoiding the expensive task of putting their children in school, Dad put us, all the 6 of us, in school. But there was one thing that Dad did wrong. Dad beat my mother. He beat her so often and so bad. I was so anxious that every day I would run out of school and stay at home and shout, "Mommy, are you there?" Only when Mommy answered, did I relax, assured that she was well. 30 years later, everything is so different. The law is now very clear on the respect of girls' and women's rights. Men are increasingly aware of the need to observe human rights. So what does this have to do with business? This significant social change has drastically reduced the gender-based violence, and so given women the room to participate in personal, career, and economic activities, translating to stronger family and national economies. And this makes good business. The second relationship that is changing is between banks and their customers. In my second year in high school, I accompanied my father to the bank to pay my school fees. Those days, 2 foreign banks were the most popular in Kenya, and Dad had banked with one of them for years. 5 months previous, Dad had left an equivalent of 200 euros in the account, and that was a reserve for my school fees. But the cashier had bad news for us this morning. That due to a new regulation that the bank had introduced of a minimum account balance of 200 euros, and the charges that went with it, the balance now was only 40 euros. For the first time, I saw Dad become so helpless that tears welled in his eyes. I went back home, not going to school, until he could gather more money. But fortunately, 10 years ago, a Kenya-owned bank called Equity Bank was founded. In simple terms, Equity Bank changed, revolutionized the idea of banking in Kenya and Africa. It is amazing how Equity Bank realized one secret, that millions and millions of Africans were keeping their small amounts of money under or inside the mattresses. So Equity had only one very serious business competitor to beat: the African mattresses. And he beat them. By her innovation, Equity became the first bank ever to have an account opening that didn't require customers to have an initial deposit. From that day, Equity Bank has worked hand in hand with many Kenyans and millions of Africans to become Africa's leading bank and world-acclaimed and award-winning bank. And this makes good business. The third relationship that is changing is between Africans. I am privileged to work among the most marginalized communities in Kenya, the Maasai. A very unique set of people with a beautiful culture, but with their own set of challenges. I work with AMREF to ensure their participation in politics, health, and economics development. But for the first 2 years in my work, I spent those years talking to the community in my eagerness to bring change, but instead of talking with them. An evaluation report that came 2 years after said that my work was not connecting with the communities. It was not producing the desired results. It woke me up. I started listening more than I would talk, asking more questions than I would give answers. Now I'm no longer interested to change anyone or anything. I have dropped my judgments and prejudice. Then the magic has happened. Now initial resistance and opposition has transformed to warm embrace, support, and mutual support. And then I've gotten a lot of wise counsel from the elders. It's amazing what has happened. And this makes good business. Now, imagine I talk with the Maasai elders about cows when I want to tackle about early marriage, which is a serious problem. Now I talk about cows. Cows because cows are highly valued among the Maasai. And a man with more cows, the greater prestige he has. Now we ponder with the cultural elders why a father would give away his daughter for only 4 cows, instead of waiting to receive a jackpot, 30 cows, if only he waited to educate her for 4 or 5 years more. And the elders laugh and they listen and say it makes business sense. And if an educated daughter can fetch a whole 30 cows, then it makes more business sense to put her in school And that's how an increasing number of Maasai men are being encouraged to keep their daughters in school and away from early marriage and female genital cut. This is just the beginning. Africa's story will grow, it will expand, it will rise to become the greatest business story in the 21st century. So, what does Africa need? Africa needs the world to listen to us. 2, Africa needs the world to talk with us, not to us or down to us. Yes, talk with us, connect with us. Let's form bonds that break all the differences that hinder human potential and possibilities. Let's connect heart to heart and form bonds that bind. 3, Africa needs the world to share our good news. Oftentimes, our pains and struggles hinder our communication with the world. It is all the world sees and hears. But pain cannot inspire Africa or the world. Hope and good news do. That's why today I've chosen to share the good news about Africa. Hopefully, you and many others out there will be inspired to do the same. So, today, after TEDxAmsterdam, promise me that when you go home to meet your family your loved ones and friends, that you will remember to share the small story about Africa, of the African people, seizing this moment and turning it into something big. Thank you.